Everything we see today holds a piece of Sarawak's history. The effort of old men and women who fought for the country. The effort of Sarawak women who fought against all odds to bring out the best of their people lives in everything around us. Their dedication, sacrifices, and courage help improve the lives of many. They paved the way for future generations and helped shape Sarawak into what it is today. The mid-1900s was the dawn of change for Sarawak girls and women. The era saw their beginning to enjoy equality. In 1950, a Chinese woman set foot on Sarawak. Despite the foreign land and culture, she embraced the state and made it her new home. She showed women and girls in her community the power of education and armed them with knowledge so they could seek a life they desired. Sarawak Chinese women gained a champion in Chi Mei Si, a woman who dedicated her life to uplift Chinese women.
My mom was born in Shanghai in 1922. Growing up, Mom was never allowed in the kitchen, so she could only boil water when she got married. Her family believed in educating girls. Her mother was a lawyer, and her father had a doctorate in philosophy. I can't remember what year she entered university, but I suppose living in Shanghai, there was less discrimination against women. She studied at McTeary High School. It was an elite girls' school based in Shanghai. Then she went to Iowa State University in the US. This was in the 1940s. I think it was because of the World War. That's why she came back to China and she continued her education at Nanking University. That's where she graduated as a chemical engineer. So she was fluent in English and Mandarin. My dad was adventurous. That's why he left Sarawak to see his motherland in the early 1940s. He went to China to study finance, and that's where he met my mom. They attended the same university. Mom, being strong-minded, she was always on a collision course with Dad.
Since the late 1920s, China has had to deal with the intermittent conflict between the Nationalist Party and the Communist Party. Soon after the Second World War ended, in 1945, the Nationalist Party and the Communist Party met to discuss the formation of a post-war government, and both parties came to an agreement on a number of issues. However, a truce between the two parties was short-lived. Despite the efforts of US General George Marshall to broker an agreement, by 1946, the two governing parties had waged a war with each other.
Because he was bilingual, Dad was recruited by the US Army under General Marshall to be an interpreter during the peace talks. When it failed, China was in turmoil. There was too much corruption. The poor got poorer and starved to death, while the rich got richer. Shanghai was the last city to fall. So Dad decided to leave China and he went back to Sarawak to look for a job. We followed later.
The husband had to come home first to apply the visa from here, from the colonial government, to bring the wife from overseas. That was the style, pattern those days.
Journeying to her new home was not easy. Her resilience was put to the test as she had to travel alone in the midst of chaos with 3 young children.
He came back to Cebu first. She followed later with her own children, bringing her own children in the old-fashioned boat. I heard she said it takes 1 month in the sea from Shanghai to Singapore, and then from Singapore down to Cebu all by herself.
My mother carried a suitcase and 3 kids and boarded a ship heading to Sarawak. I was only a few months old then, but she told me she managed to get a small cabin by paying one of the ship's workers. It was a cargo ship, so it did not have proper cabins. Everyone was seasick. Food was always a problem and milk powder was rare. Mom had to tie me to her back and my older brothers to her waist to keep us safe. Mom loved Shanghai, but at that time she was glad to leave China. Happy to leave behind warring factions, even though starting a new life in Sarawak would be tough.
The first place she knew when she arrived in Sarawak in early 1950 was Sarawak.
We first landed in Sarawak. It was a port of call. We stayed in Sarawak for a few months, waiting for a ship to Cebu to reunite with Dad.
I think like everybody else in the beginning when she first arrived, it was more of bringing up children, married here, come here, doesn't know what the future was like. But she jumped in and do whatever she can.
After reuniting with her husband in Cebu, the family moved to Kuching. She took some time to settle into her new home and later she began to build a new life for herself. With a passion in education, she put her chemical engineering degree to use.
In Kuching, she taught at St. Mary and St. Thomas Secondary School. She was a shared science teacher between the two schools because it was hard to find science teachers then, so she was grabbed by many schools. She taught chemistry and physics. She was also a maths teacher, so every problem has a solution. Mom was very logical. Life is all about problem solving. There are no forced solutions, just sensible choices. That's how I fondly remember her.
She taught in Kuching until the late 1950s when her family had to move back to Cebu following her husband's assignment. In Cebu, she took the job of a science teacher in Methodist Secondary School.
I was educated in Methodist Secondary School in Cebu. She was my science teacher in 1962 when I was in Form 1. She taught me for 1 year. I would know her as a very good science teacher who taught very well. Every morning, we like to greet her as she parked her car on the basketball court. She will carry out her basket. Early in the morning, she will be full of sweat because she found Cebu so hot. And yet, she could smile and say good morning. Are you ready for class? She would say. I would say she paid a lot of attention to us and she made sure that we gain very high marks for science. And she would pat us at the back and smile all the time and look at us very approvingly. So the acknowledgement was very good. She had that character in her. She did not walk into the class, deliver her lesson and walk away. She made sure that she looked at us.
Macy considered herself fortunate to have come from a family with a great love for education. To her, education could change the mindset of women and help them to make a difference in their lives and not to be left in the doldrums of time.
She had very strong mission for education for girls especially, because she felt that if girls were well educated, girls would not be abused, girls would not be cheated, girls would not suffer so much.
During her time as a teacher, she experienced firsthand how unfair the education system was at the time. Because of that, she ventured into opening her own school, the Reang Secondary School.
The Reang Secondary School was set up in around 1962. That was the time when she was in Cebu, because she saw the need to capture and to help those students who failed primary 6 and also Form 3, the Sarawak Junior. In those days, the private schools offered those students who did not make it in the exam a second chance in life so that they could complete their 5 years of secondary school and have a good MCE, the Malaysian Certificate of Education. The students who failed primary 6 would have no opportunity to appeal or resit for their primary 6 common entrance exam. So these were the students who were too young to find a job in the job market, and they needed to continue their studies. So in those days, there were a few private schools set up. So these schools were all out to offer places for students who fail. In those days, Malaysia was still new, and English was a compulsory subject. And it was part of the exam requirement. You had to pass English. These kids did not do well in exam because they were not good in English. It was the language that prevented them from understanding. So when they were weak in English, they could not capture the subject and the knowledge well enough to do the exam. So when they improved in the English, they could do better. So in the Reang Secondary School, Mrs. Chi, for example, would try her best to engage teachers who were very good in English. And we would give intensive English, maybe 10 lessons per week to the students. And then they did pass the exam well.
In 1965, a change was made to the Malaysian education system. The auto-promotion system was adopted for government secondary schools where students who failed primary 6 and Form 3 would still be able to continue their studies. As a result, there was no need for private schools anymore.
The school is no longer in existence. I think she closed it down sometime in 1975. I think, and I strongly believe that she was very happy to be able to educate these boys and girls who could no longer go to government school. So she was very happy seeing like 15 or 18 students in Form 1 who otherwise would be working as boat boys, coffee shop boys, or office boys. To Mrs. Chi, nobody should be working if you were below 18 years old. They should all be in school. So she was collecting all these students between 12 and 18 years old for her school.
With the United Nations Universal Education Declaration and the Malaysian government's auto-promotion system, more children went to school, and the number of schools also increased due to the demand. With the increase in the educational opportunities, more girls went to school and became educated. It was during this period that Chi Mei Si reached the retirement phase of her education career. Nevertheless, she still had a burning desire to contribute to her community. She found her next mission, which was to empower older women. Her journey began by educating young girls about their rights. Later, she ventured into empowering older women so they have the courage to step out of their homes and experience life beyond the women's sphere. And she saw the medium to empower women in politics.
So our people, back in those days, I have seen their interest is only in the home, nothing outside of the home. Husband, home, and children. And if you ask them to do, okay, join politics or go out to work, I think not many wants to do that. Their whole world is in the house. Many women don't even go to the market, I know, for instance, even in the late 60s. First the husband and later on the children will go and buy whatever vegetable and market stuff and everything, or have groceries sent to the house, monthly groceries sent to the house. And they just make do with everything in the house, look after the compound, plant things, have some farm animals. That's all they're doing. Bringing up children is priority. We have more affluent families do send their girls for higher education and so on, but then they are more interested in self. Still, they are more interested in family, not in outside. Look after internal first.
The early 1970s saw Chi Mei Si move back to Kuching, where she stepped into politics, joining SGPP in 1971. Years later, in 1978, she set up a women's wing for SGPP with the purpose of fighting for women's rights and encourage women to have a more active role in our society.
So she was recruiting women in Kuching to form the Sarawak United People's Party Women's Section. So I know she was chasing me around, wanting me to join. No politics in my brain. I said, no way. Every time we hear politics, we stay away, First of all, because we're not interested in politics. Second of all, if anything, let the men do it, not the women. Again, the women always say things like that, let the men do it, When we first get the women to come, all women are scared of politics. Oh, never mind, you come, we learn flower arrangement, we learn cooking, we learn making cakes. We have to approach them in such a way. And then they will come. And slowly from there, they understand. We are involved in election, making sure our people win in the election so that we have representatives in the government. Joining the women wings is bringing the issues of women to the government, women issues. Otherwise, you don't talk your issues, who knows? Before, I would say also, housewife, care about the home. Why should I care about outside? Look after my home, my children is good enough. But after I learn from joint politics and learn, we see other people are they are people who are very, very susah. You do see all these things and you try to do for them. Even if you do welfare work, you still need to know government policy or recommend things to the government for change. It was not very difficult to emancipate women. Not very difficult, I can see that. And because you just need to say the right things to them and they are willing to come out. In fact, many are willing to come out. We talk about domestic abuse. Women get abused, keep quiet. Destiny, fated. They want to get out of the situation, but they don't know how. They cannot get out. Government now have what they call home shelter, Your husband cannot keep beating you. Government will know about it, they will put you somewhere away from the abusive husband. But those days, you go out, go where? Your mother and father probably say, go back. Yeah, but now no. Father and mother also more educated already.
Owing to her remarkable work in SUPP, she was awarded the Ali Bintang Sarawak in 1983.
The party recognizes what she has done. And usually, if you are the leader of a woman section, you definitely will get some kind of an award, because that is an achievement. You work very hard for it.
Her name was also recommended by the party to the Kuching Municipal Council, which is in charge of making policy and making decisions related to the city. Chi Mei Si was accepted into the council in the early 1980s, and she occupied the position for one term. Her newly acquired position allowed her to make a deeper mark in Sarawak's history.
She went to the remote areas in Sarawak, where she saw for herself the living conditions of the people, especially the poor and underprivileged. And she brought their plight to the attention of relevant authorities for remedial action.
Through being on the council, she was exposed to many different issues that plagued the community. She found out about the Chinese inheritance law that played against the interests of Chinese women.
In the olden days, if the husband passed away, then if the son is grown up, the sons will take over, not daughters. If the sons are still small, father-in-law will take over. If no more father-in-law, then brother-in-laws take over. Wife just keep quiet and get whatever it is. I even know of my friend's daughter, even in the 80s, husband suddenly passed on. Actually, the brother take over everything. And she has to take monthly allowance from the brother-in-law side.
Because of the women's avoidance of political group, and since Chi Macy needed the women's support to change the law, she started the Sarawak Federation of Chinese Women Association.
See, many people don't like to join politics, but they will go to association. And so we can approach the association for organizing things and for education talks. See, if the talk is organized by a certain association, more women will listen to the talk. Female inheritance law, education and things like that, they will come and listen there. But if it is done in the political one, maybe the male parts of the family will say, yeah, don't go, these are political people, you know. All these women understood the inheritance law, everybody signed. You know, we have to sign a big piece of paper to send to the government that we are doing this.
In 1986, the women's voice was heard. The effort proved to be effective with the amendments to the inheritance law.
She made the law changed so that women have a portion of the property if the husband dies without a will. Nowadays, women are more educated. They understand things about will, and they will make sure that a will is made before the husband passed on.
After she had yet again changed the future for women, Chi Macy was already in her 60s. With her latest victory, she slowly reduced her workload. Eventually, in the early 1990s, she retired from all official positions.
I know in her final years, her son tell her to move back to Cebu. And she go into retirement, don't do anything. But then she was very old already. I did visit her when she was in Cebu.
Mom was always traveling. I remember visiting Shanghai with her in 2001. Every time she traveled to Shanghai, she would definitely visit her alma mater. That year, the school presented a list of needy students to her, and she sponsored 2 of the girls to complete their education. It cost about $5,000 of her savings. They wanted to thank her, but Mom said the only way to thank her is to sponsor other girls, to pay her kindness forward. My mother was different. She was gentle with us. When all my friends got rotten, she never hit or spanked me. She was gentle. She doesn't use harsh words, only words of encouragement and stimulation, because some kids learn differently. I love my mom. She was a great inspiration and support to me, and I'm in awe of what she did for Sarawak. But I do wish she could have smelled the roses more often.
I think the thing is a passion and a desire to upgrade old women. She comes from Shanghai, and they are much advanced, I think, in many ways. So she has the vision to upgrade. We are lucky to have women that come ahead of us with that kind of vision who pull us up. Otherwise, I think many of us will not be where we are today. Even though she is not Sarawakian born, but she has great love for Sarawak women. Everything she thinks of is the good and the education of Chinese women.